Hey everybody, welcome to Obscurities and Miniatures, and it's time once again for a Friday Obscurity in Literature, and we're getting some serious vintage going on with this book. Recently somebody had mentioned about one of the dinosaurs I'd posted in one of the videos about how it reminded them of a Berni Wrightson Allosaurus, and that triggered some kind of memory module in my miniature-addled brain, and reminded me that I have this book, this massive, honking book by Berni Wrightson, A Look Back. Now, originally, if I remember correctly, this was published back in the late 70s when he'd kind of hit it big before the heavy metal movie and all that. And this was a new edition that came out, according to the copyright info in the cover, in 1991. I saw it there somewhere. Right here. And the binding is awful. God awful. The book is completely coming apart and it's super glossy, so it's hard to see anything with the lighting in this room set up. Let me see if I can play with that a little bit. But so what's crazy is if this came out in 1991, I must have been, junior high? And already I had impeccable taste in comic art. I don't even know how I found out about Berni Wrightson now. I know I met him at Comic-Con in the mid-90s, but I was already well versed in his stuff. I have some autographed Captain Stern books by him. I keep swearing that I have an autographed version of his Frankenstein edition. And this book, this was like a holy grail for me as a teen. I had to have this book when I found out about it, and it's a big book. Using a old Warhammer book just for reference. Let me see if I can play with the blinds here. Does that change anything? Not much, but you can get kind of the idea. So this is a good 300-page plus look at what I always felt was a master of sequential art. Wrightson just had it going on. And so this book, as I attempt to peel it open, is a mixture of both published and unpublished material. I'm going to have to kind of hold it carefully until I get into the book later. God, I can just hear it. You can absolutely see the EC influence in his work. Jack Davis, Wally Wood. Words. Nobody cares about words. Crankle, yeah. So we get into his early childhood. Some of his early work here, which is pretty impressive to see. But things really take off when our intrepid artist is first introduced to a certain Frank Frazetta's artwork. And you can absolutely see the influence going on there with these illustrations. And it's like already at a young age, he was working far more impressive than I ever was. I will never admit to being a good artist. Graham Ingalls. Yeah, you can definitely see some Ingalls style there. That page just about sums it up. Cavemen, scantily clad ladies, rocket ships, and monsters. And that to me is my teenage years in a nutshell. I absolutely adored Wrightson's work. And I mean, I think that's why this book is so decrepit and falling apart at this point. This is the mid-60s. He was drawing like this. Before he was even a professional artist. Just absolutely impressive. I want to draw like Wrightson. Early work for local newspapers, 1968. Already got a good eye. For his composition. That shadowing and cross-hatching he does. Just his use of Positive and negative space always impressed me. This one eventually, I know he turned into a much more famous painting. It's from 1970. Can definitely see the influence he would have on future artists like Mark Schultz, the Xenozoic Tales. And just the subject matter as well. What year was he doing House of Mystery? The thing I always dug about Wrightson's work is his detailed backgrounds, and I don't think that became even more apparent until his Frankenstein work. But even so, this is 73, it says. One of these days I'm going to pick up those House of Secrets, House of Mystery omnibuses. I've been quite tempted. Damn. The book falls apart. 72, but the man's style just worked for this subject matter. Now, I didn't know this until I actually got the Cole omnibus the other day, which eventually I'll probably do a video on, is Wrightson did the original story, and funny enough, I had some of the old Dark Horse reprints, and there it is as well in color. I wasn't super impressed by it, but that was okay. It's like Star-Lord. Maybe Solomon Kane. More words. Anybody knew how to draw zombies? Wrightson was the man. A couple of early stories here. I think who inked Wrightson also becomes a very important thing. Swamp Thing obviously being a major milestone in his career. Funny enough, I read a lot of the Steve Bissett, Alan Moore, Rick Veitch stuff with Swamp Thing. Never read the Wrightson books. Someday I hope to correct that. Man, I love his art. To me, he felt like an artist that was drawing what he loved. Let me get into his purple pictography, which is all of his more adult work, him and Von Bode, which is kind of fun stuff. If ever there were two artists that were great at drawing scantily clad ladies, we shall not spoil those stories or get ourselves in trouble when censored, so I'm just going to keep on rolling on here. We get into some of his early portfolio work, and again, just the use of shading, shadows, light. I don't even know what these magazines are. Nothing I've heard of. Webster from the Web of Horror. Fun stuff. I love these old kind of Warren style, intro splash pages. His use of panels is also really cool. Paperback covers that I didn't know existed. At least I'd forgotten about. In their full-on frizzetedness, and if I open the book too much, I can already see the binding snapping. Oh no. But again, just the fact that these are on such nice, big pages really helps add to the impressiveness of what's on display here. What's really cool is these pages are actually throwaway pieces of art that Wrightson did just on jam sessions with, what's his name? Mike Kaluta, Jones, Catherine Jones, right? Just all random artwork that he's churning out for fun. Oh, the binding. Look at that. Look at that line work. And again, the use of shadows and light and absence of shadows there. Really cool stuff. We get into his Warren work, which if you have access to, it's still in print, I believe. The Best of Berni Wrightson through Dark Horse. That one might be worth looking into. Another gorgeous book. More paperback covers. Good old Conan. Siegfried. What's cool is actually the other page is a big blow up of this, but the book seems to be stable laying it this way, so I'm going to keep it there. Definitely influential stuff. And then we get into the Frankenstein illustrations. So I know that, he had worked on doing a very, traditional Boris Karloff version of the monster. We have a lot of various starts and false beginnings, attempts at making a comic version of it. Again, just look at the crazy detail that is going on in the backgrounds there. And then we have him start to get the monster more like what's actually in the book. I remember reading the book. So I must have already known about Wrightson, I guess, in junior high, because I had the collected version of Shelley's Frankenstein that he did the illustrations all throughout, like every few pages. I think I read that like my freshman or sophomore year of high school. There we go. Just absolutely crazy detail. I mean, I could just imagine him slavering over these things, lavishly putting all that work into it. Well, everybody was making a big deal of how guys like Mignola and Miller were reinventing, the use of shadow and color and light in comics at the time in the 90s. Here I was busting out Wrightson work. Then we get to what actually got me triggered about thinking of these books were his Dinosaur Illustrations, both the black and white and colored versions. Someone mentioned his Allosaur. There we go. Just for you guys. So yeah, fun stuff. Even his sketch work, rough line work, is far more impressive than anything I've ever done. That's nuts. But it's good stuff. Yeah, I mean, this really just kind of touches upon... Oh, where's that John Carter? Okay, I think it's me, since I'm at the end of the book here anyway. One of my favorite pictures he did is when he was working at Warren. And there we go. His famous Martians. And I vaguely remember the comic shop or previews or somebody offering up posters of these, and I absolutely wanted them, and they never came to fruition. Or maybe it was just a crazy fever dream, but I can't think of a time I've ever seen the Green Martians of Barsoom look as cool as they did when Wrightson was trying to illustrate them. Or the little squid guys from War of the Worlds. Definitely some cool stuff. But what else can you say about Berni Wrightson? I mean, the guy was a powerhouse when it came to art, super influential on, both his peers at the time and everybody that would come later. And, not only did he just make a major mark back in the 70s when he was at his most productive, but, continued to innovate and illustrate throughout his career. I mean, even in the 90s, he was doing stuff like the Batman books and Predator and Aliens and things like that for Dark Horse and DC. And I know we have a bunch of those. And I know, we met him on numerous occasions down in San Diego, and I really appreciated and enjoyed every chance I got to talk to him. But all good things must come to pass, unfortunately. So at least we've got a huge treasure trove of amazing artwork that still lives on with us today. And if you're curious about seeing any of his stuff, I would recommend trying to hunt down the creepy or best of Berni Wrightson from Dark Horse through all the Warren books, Creepy and Eerie. I think that's probably the best way to get a hold of this stuff. Most of his other books, unfortunately, are super duper expensive and out of print and overpriced. And if mine was in better condition, I was looking at Amazon, they wanted like $1,200 or something ridiculous for this. No, that's what I don't like. This kind of stuff should stay in print so people can enjoy and appreciate it. Or at the very least, I can come over here and show it off for you guys. So, with that said, this has been High Lord Tamberlane with Obscurities and Miniatures, saying thanks for watching, and we will see you back here soon. Bye-bye.